Mike Tedeschi, Wealth Management Advisor at Perspective Wealth Planning. With this week's market breakdown video, we're going to take a look at the four major U.S. indexes. We'll also take a look at some commodities, jump in and take a look at the U.S. dollar as well, and the emerging markets. First, we're going to jump in and we're going to real briefly touch on breadth. We've talked a lot about it over the last few months. We've also talked a lot about how retail traders were extremely aggressively positioned on the speculative side. And a couple of names really had been holding this market up. So when we take a look at the Nasdaq Cullen Summation Index, you can see we failed, and we've talked about this before, right at that level that we ran into in 2019, and subsequently we have turned back down from that point in time. And what we have in play now is we're actually below that zero mark. So breadth readings have been pretty abysmal, which is a concern, and back below that zero mark is certainly a concern. While the market continued to make new highs, underneath the surface we had seen things kind of deteriorate, and now we're starting to see the market sell off a bit off of that information. Really, it's starting to become a little bit important, so to speak. When we take a look in here, the S&P 500 really is trapped in between that 3,300 and 3,400 zone. After making a breakout above 3,400, pushed to new all-time highs, then we had that sharp sell-off. And here we are, looking at support in that 3,300 zone. One of the ways one could take a look at this market is this could be that kind of potential bear flag before another leg down. 3,300 is going to ultimately, at the end of the day, be the major key, and that's really what we wanted to discuss and point out here. If the market can hold that 3,300 zone, we should be okay. If we fall below that, then we're starting to look at kind of retracing a portion of this move that we have had off of the bottom, which has just been an absolutely historic rally, and some breathing room and a little bit of time off, so to speak, would not necessarily be a bad thing. We take a look in at the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq's key level is at 11,000 zone. We laid that out in last week's video, and here it is once again. We take a look in at the Russell 2000, and we failed at that 1,600 zone. We held that 1,500 zone. We've kind of bounced around back and forth in there. So the next move that we're really looking for is a close under 1,500 or a close above 1,600. We jump in and we take a look at the Dow Jones. We did not get that new all-time high. 29,000 is that key resistance zone from this push up, but it is trapped really in a 28,400 to about 27,400 range. And we can look at this and we can kind of also see the potential where we might have that kind of potential head and shoulders type pattern set up here on the daily that to break underneath the support zone, but that is really why we're paying very, very close attention. Right, the market's really kind of barely holding on here to these support zones, but still holding on. Right, if it breaks underneath, then we have to change our mindset. Until then, we're just looking at those zones as those kind of support areas. The emerging markets themselves are still trapped in between that 1,100 and 1,160 zone. We talked a lot about that. If we were to fail here, you would end up with a lower high put in there on the emerging markets. So a high and then a lower high. That would not be good that it didn't make a higher high off of that push. But again, really watching that support zone. As long as that support zone holds, we will be subsequently okay at the moment. Now, let's take a look at the U.S. dollar. We've talked a lot about that as of late. The U.S. dollar, when we back the picture up, we can see we're looking for that 91 target. We bounced a little bit before there. It's trapped in between 92 and 94. So really the way that we could take a look at that now would be 92, 94. That's kind of that zone that the dollar is trapped in. So a move back above 94, we'd look for that 96, and a move below 92, we look for that push lower. So it's still kind of trapped inside that range. We don't really have a direction there. When we take a look in at gold, gold's still trapped inside of that wedge. Right, we can see that pattern really has played out here over a couple of months, working off that big move that it had, trading inside this zone. We're looking for a move over 2,000. We're looking for a move over 1,900. Nothing has changed over there. We take a look in at oil. Oil had a real sharp sell-off last week and a nice bounce back of this week. Looking at the underside of that important 41.50 zone. So what happens right here is going to be really important. If it can push back up above that, then this can end up being that kind of like false breakdown kind of zone. and that would be a good sign for the bulls. You essentially could utilize that as that next zone of support at that point in time, and you actually would potentially have that higher low kind of pattern put in there. If it fails right here and starts to roll over, that's where we would get really concerned. So we're paying very close attention to what's going on right here at that 41.50 inflection point in on oil. Now, this week's video was shorter than normal. That's because we have analyzed and laid out all of the reasons why we might make that ultimate breakdown right here. But at the end of the day, the market is the ultimate determining factor here. So if we hold that 3,300 level, we're kind of in the all clear for the time being. If we break below that, then a lot of the issues that we've discussed in depth over the last few months really could start to play out. So we're going to pay very close attention to what's happening right here. As always, we'll come back next week with more information. If you guys want to reach out and you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out at mtedeschi@perspectivewealthplanning.com, or you can give me a call at 814-580-9881. I'm more than happy to talk anything about the markets with you guys. As always, have a great week. Take